Hey, we're live! Finally, the long-awaited debut, Andy.
Yes, we are making our debut to Facebook Live.
Hey,
I'm sure we're gonna win an Emmy for this, a daytime Emmy, or even an Oscar, maybe. But I'm really excited that we are doing this and that people are joining, and we're so glad that you're here with us.
I got a
Hey,
haircut just for this. I want you to know. It's a big deal. First time ever.
haircut.
National
Well,
TV. National TV.
speaking of haircut, I got one also. Actually, I gave myself one this morning, which is pretty normal for me. Hey, I know that you're a LA Dodgers fan. Even though
Big
I'm
LA
here in
Dodgers
North Carolina, I grew up a Dodgers fan also. And incredible game last night. Not that I saw the ending because that would have been like really early in the morning.
Yeah,
But
wait too, and it ended after 10 p.m., so I was out.
yeah, well, but I saw the highlights this morning, and incredible finish by Will Smith in a pinch hit walk-off home run. Pretty amazing.
Go Dodgers, go!
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So we're so glad that you are joining us as we talk about Growing Young in a Changing World cohort. We're excited to kind of share a little bit about this. And so we're going to encourage you to chat in any questions that you might have, and we will try to answer those as we go along. But my name's Andy Jung. I am the director of church. Thanks, Zach. I'm the director of church engagement, and I'm really excited about this year's Growing Young in a Changing World cohort for a few reasons. One, post-pandemic, kind of, sort of, not really, because we're not actually past pandemic quite yet. But churches are asking a lot of questions right now, right? I mean, Zach, are you getting those questions?
All the time.
Yeah, I mean, we're asking questions of what is church going to actually look like, post pandemic, or whenever there's no normal anymore, but whatever it's going to look like in the next phase. They're asking questions, and how do we, especially as we talk about young people, how do we better engage young people in the church? And really, the good news, even though our Growing Young research was done before the pandemic, the good news is that this research seems to transcend kind of what's happening right now, or kind of any time, that it's really something that these principles are something that can be used at any point.
Yeah. Definitely, Andy. And I'm Zach Ellis. I am the church training manager, and I am so excited about this year's cohort because I love hearing stories throughout our training cohorts, and especially at the end, about what God does through ministry leaders, through pastors, through staff, through volunteers, and the many others who are willing to say yes to God in this season. And so that's what I am most excited about for this next year's cohort.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've walked with several churches through this process. I say several, probably more than just a few. But we've walked with a lot of churches through this process. And one church in particular that I'm thinking of right now, here in North Carolina, went through this Growing Young cohort while they were experiencing a pastoral transition. Mm-hmm. And they started the cohort without a senior pastor, but really their team really began dreaming about what it meant for the church to better engage their young people. And the exciting thing was when the new pastor came into the church, and it was kind of halfway through the Growing Young process, he was able to really just jump into that process, add his perspective into it. And it really became their beginning point of recasting a vision for the church. And it became, it catalyzed a new vision for the pastor and for the church. And it really energized the church as a whole. And it was really neat to see that happen.
Yeah, we've that's such an encouraging story. And we've actually done this cohort with over 500 churches. And I know you haven't coached all 500 churches, Andy, but you have coached a lot of those churches. So before going any further, I wanted to invite everybody listening to put any questions you have in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them as they come in. We'll either answer them, our team will answer them through chat, or we'll answer them verbally. And also, if you tag a friend, you'll be entered into a drawing for our Growing Young Core Commitment videos, which is they're normally $99 on our store. You can use these to share about Growing Young and your congregation. So for each friend you tag, you'll get another entry. And this goes until 12 a.m. Pacific time, not North Carolina time, 12 a.m. Pacific time. So I want to begin this. Growing Young research was done. Best research, right? The best research, research. 1 and 2 students in the church within 12 to 18 months after graduation. Now, Andy and I, we're both pastors. We love the church, we love young people, and we love God. And so this statistic breaks our hearts because it's not just a statistic, Andy. It's people in our youth group. It's our kids, it's our grandkids, it's our nephews and nieces and friends and people in our community. These people have names, and so it breaks our hearts. Think about the teenagers in your church. Half of them will walk away from their faith after high school. That's what the research says. But this isn't the full story, is it, Andy?
No, thankfully not. And it doesn't have to be your story either. Right. Sticky Faith did tell us that 50% of our graduates shelved their faith within, a year and a half of leaving high school. And it is heartbreaking, but it isn't our story. And like you, we don't want that to continue. So we really set out to study churches that were reaching young people and retaining young people well. And we studied over 250 churches, hundreds of young people and church leaders and parents and pastors, and thousands of hours of just transcripts to go through. And what we discovered was that there were six kind of core commitments that we refer to them as that these churches really held throughout across all of the different churches. And out of this, we were able to develop a training that is in a cohort format to help churches just like yours grow young. And before we go too much further, we'd love for you to continue to just asking questions if you have any. Continue tagging your friends. Remember, this is where we sound like an infomercial, I think, but that's okay. That we continue tagging your friends and enter into the drawing for the Growing Young Core Commitments video packet. And we would love to send one to you as the winner of this drawing.
Yeah, and feel free to questions as well in the chat. So since we started doing Growing Young Cohort trainings to young people, and this your congregation in this quick launch final summit. And this year, we're hosting 3 digital summits in October, February, and May. And the exciting thing is you get all the Growing Young Cohort training that we've been doing for years, but you don't have to pay for hotel and travel expenses to come out to Southern California. So we also offer exclusive webinars on topics like implementing Growing Young in your congregation, managing conflict, and on issues that are important to young people today. And what's really cool is you get to interact with the authors of Growing Young.
Speaking of which, we actually have one of those authors with us right now, I think. Kara, are you with us?
Yeah,
Hey, there you are.
Zach. Great to be with you.
Yeah, Kara, welcome. Kara is
I'm
the
coming
chief
to you
of
from my
leadership
dining
formation.
room here in Pasadena, California.
Awesome. Kara is the chief of leadership formation at Fuller Seminary, executive director of Fuller Youth Institute, Miss Do It All so much. And of course, co-author of Growing Young. So welcome to Facebook Live, Kara.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here. And maybe most importantly, I'm a parent of a 20-year-old, 18-year-old, and 15-year-old. So there's a lot of young people living and talking here in my family. In fact, I'm taking my 18-year-old out for coffee in about 15 minutes just to kind of hang out with her. So love getting time with my kids and their friends, and the young people at our church are just inspiring.
Yeah, Kara. So absolutely. What's one thing that most excites you about this Growing Young in a Changing World cohort?
Yeah, I was talking to a family ministry pastor a few days ago, and she shared what I've heard from a lot of youth pastors, next gen pastors, family ministry pastors. They are tired. This family ministry pastor was tired and has experimented a lot and knows she needs to keep experimenting. And so she's tired. She's a little overwhelmed with all the uncertainty. That's a word I hear so much from leaders today, how uncertain things change. And so I actually talked with her about this cohort and said, you'll get to rub shoulders in the Growing Young cohort with other churches who are also tired and are also experimenting. So you can learn from their experiments. So, you as a church, you have your pod of experiments, but if you could be exposed to a few dozen other churches and learn from their experiments, that just helps your change go faster and easier. So I think, as I told her, I said, I don't think there's ever been a better time to be in a cohort like this, because we need to learn and be inspired by the Holy Spirit, and we need to learn from each other.
Yeah, that's certainly something that we hear a lot right now, is just people who are just leaders who are tired. But we do need each other. And so thank you for that encouragement. I know that you are a busy person. You got lots of things to do, but thanks for dropping in and being with us.
It was great to be with you. And I'm praying that God will lead the right churches to this cohort, and look forward to see how God answers those prayers through churches and leaders like you all who are watching this. So blessings. Take care.
Thanks, Kara. So yeah, I hope that you were encouraged by that, and that you will consider being a part of this cohort. The early discount for this cohort does end at the end of this month, and the pricing right now is $1,749, but it will increase up to $2,000 at the end of the month, after the end of the month. So we encourage you, if you are thinking about signing up, to do that in the next week and a half before we get to the end of the month.
Yeah, we just want to remind you, for those who are popping in right now, to ask any questions in the comments section of either YouTube Live or Facebook Live, and we will do our best to answer those either in chat or on the air. And also continue tagging your friends in the comments section and enter the drawing for the Growing Young Core Commitment videos. So Andy, you took your church through the Growing Young cohort a few years ago. You've also led many churches in your denomination through this cohort. Could you share a story of transformation with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I took my church that I was pastoring at that time back in 2017 and 18. And the Growing Young core commitments that we learned about really helped us to become a healthier church. And it helped us to really strategize ways to better welcome and engage young families, and most of all, it helped us to figure out ways to really build better intergenerational relationships. And Growing Young Principles really helped the church to come alive. I mean, I saw so many things that God was able to do through this process that really helped the church to be energized. And it was really amazing and truly just an honor to watch God at work. I don't think that it was me that was doing any of that, but it's truly God at work, and it was just pretty awesome to be a part of it.
Yeah, and we have another guest with us today, and I see some questions popping up in the comments section, and we're going to answer a couple of those live. Thank you for submitting those. But we have another guest with us today, Lisa Hanley. Now, Lisa is on staff at FYI for now as the 1010 project director, but she's been involved with FYI for much longer. She's been a pastor for over 10 years in Silicon Valley, and a couple years ago, she took her congregation through the Growing Young Cohort. Lisa, are you there? Oh, there's Lisa. Welcome, Lisa. So I would love to hear about what your experience was like in the cohort.
Yeah, so my church went through the Growing Young Cohort back in 2016 and 17. And I loved that it was a longer, deeper process to engage. Yeah. So I had a lot of other experiences where I had done, a one-day training or a couple days, and I would get inspired and learn something new, and then would go home and try to implement it for a couple weeks, honestly, like maybe a couple months at best, and then it would just fade away. I would forget, I would get stuck. And so one of my favorite things about the cohort is that it's a year of learning, being inspired, but also coaching, support, how to actually lead those changes, how to actually deal with those barriers and hurdles that we all face when we're trying to grow and change. And so I love that it actually helped us implement that longer term sustainable change, not just be inspired and then it kind of fell away.
Yeah, thanks so much. That's so exciting, Lisa. And I know that your church has continued to see fruit from the Growing Young Cohort. So thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you outside of this little box right here very soon.
All right, thanks, guys.
So I do see a question from Giovanni that came in. How do I help my students move from community to a community of faith? One of the things that we will talk about extensively in the cohort is how to have faith conversations with young people, how to talk to young people. Sometimes, for me at least, when I was a youth pastor and now that I volunteer in my youth group, sometimes talking to young people can be intimidating. And sometimes having faith conversations with my own kids can be a little intimidating. And so one of the things we talk a lot about is what is important to young people. What are the conversations that young people are having so that we have the tools we need to start developing that community of faith like you're asking. Thank you so much, Giovanni. So I did want to remind you once again, continue putting the questions in, continue tagging your friends and entering the drawing for the Growing Young Core Commitment videos. Another question from Stephen. Andy, do you want to answer that one? You've been a senior.
So what if I'm excited about the cohort, but my senior pastor is hesitant? The answer isn't get a new senior pastor. The answer is really help your senior pastor to see the vision. And can FYI help me communicate that value? Absolutely. We can certainly give you tools to have conversations. The fact sheet gives you all a lot of the information that you can share with your senior pastor. But then you can also share this video where you hear stories of how it's impacted churches or how it's impacted the leaders. And we think that we want to have senior leaders on board because we know that with their support, man, so many things can happen in the church. And this isn't just about doing youth ministry better, right? Growing Young really is about a cultural shift in the church And I really like to see it as this is just a healthy way of being church together. And so it isn't just about young people, even though we do focus on young people. It is really about the whole church coming together and becoming a healthy body of Christ. Yeah.
And Andy and I, this is what we do every day. We love it. If you need help talking to senior leaders, Andy has been a denominational leader and a senior pastor for a number of years. And I talk to senior pastors all the time. So if you need help explaining the cohort, let us know. You can email me. My email is zachellis@fuller.edu. Somebody's going to put that in the comments section. Reach out to me, and we'd be happy to schedule a conversation with you and a conversation with any senior leaders that are interested in the cohort. So I did want to go over the cohort. I'm aware people have joined us since we last talked about it, and so I want to go over it again. And while you continue putting your questions and tagging your friends in the comments section. So we've been doing the cohort for a number of years now. We've had over 500 churches go through the cohort and discover how the core commitments can energize their ministry with young people. And this year's cohort, we're aware that the world has changed since we've done the research a few years ago. And so we've newly designed the cohort to meet your congregation in this quickly changing world. It starts with a launch webinar in September. That's on September 14th. And it ends with our final summit in May. This year, we're hosting 3 digital summits in October, February, and May so that you can enjoy all the Growing Young cohort training, but you don't have to pay for hotels and flights and all those travel expenses that come with some of our other cohorts in the past. And we also
not that being in Southern California is a bad thing. It's a good trip out.
Especially in February. That's always a big hit. Churches love
but it is costly. It is costly.
We also offer exclusive webinars on topics like implementing Growing Young in your congregation, managing conflict, and on issues that are important to young people today so that you can have those faith conversations with your kids and your grandkids and the teenagers in your youth group. And you get to interact with the authors, as we saw already today when we welcomed Kara Powell onto our Facebook and YouTube Live. And this is a reminder, the early discount of $17.49 ends at the end of the month on July 31st. And so after that, the price jumps. So sign up soon, reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you about it before the end of the month.
And don't forget to keep tagging your friends in the chat and entering for the drawing for the Growing Young Core Commitments video. Somebody's going to get a packet worth $99 in our store right now.
That's a steal.
And so we want to give that away today. And then if you have any questions, certainly email us anytime, contact us. We would love to have a conversation with you about anything, really. We'll talk about anything, but especially the Growing Young in a Changing World cohort. And so,
yeah, if you want to talk about the Dodgers, Andy, are you open to those phone calls?
Always.
Okay.
Or golf. I can talk about golf.
Yeah, Andy's an avid golfer, so
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to speaking more about the cohort soon with each of you.
Hey, I'm expecting my Oscar in the mail at least by next week. Okay.
I'm sending it your way right now.
Good.
Well
Thanks,
done,
guys.
Andy.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks so much.